In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Burnham Lane. In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Bath Road, A4. Turn right onto Bath Road, A4. Continue on Bath Road for 3/4 of a mile. In 200 yards, at Huntercombe roundabout, take the first exit onto Huntercombe Spur heading to M4, London. Exit the roundabout onto Huntercombe Spur. Keep left at the fork. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
cinemas, I used to enjoy a burger with onions whilst watching the film, says Albert. Blimey, they used to do... I didn't think they did burgers. I thought they did hot dogs. Yeah, nachos. Oh no, how naff. Steve, my wife lost a job at Virgin after 22 years at Heathrow due to the first COVID lockdown. She reapplied for a job back then and was offered 0 contract hours, which meant a lot less money. And that's why they've got no staff. The bonus, Steve, she says she can listen to you every day. Well, there you go. Every cloud, as they say, a silver lining. Thank you for your company. I wish you all a very, very, very pleasant bank holiday. I'm back again tomorrow. Don't forget my free little bit extra podcast. Yeah, there is one. There's a new episode to download every single day exclusively on the Global Player app. And if you missed any of this morning's programme, there'll be a podcast of the whole show available very shortly as well, because we're just two-handed this morning. Just two-handed. So I'll be back with you tomorrow morning with Steve Allen's early breakfast at 4. Coming up at 10 this morning, it's David Lammy. But right now, with your bank holiday breakfast, it's Andrew Castle.
Yes, I know it's a bank holiday because I didn't have to pay to park. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everybody. Coming up, a round over misogyny in Parliament runs on for another day, and it will go on. Ideas on how to combat it have included closing Parliament's bars and pubs. Here's what the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, had to say about it.
No, they shouldn't all be shots. I don't think we should have a kind of excessively puritanical, severe regime in that regard.
Here's Anne-Marie Trevelyan speaking to Nick Ferrari last week.
You might describe it as wandering hands. If you like, you might describe it as, a number of years ago being pinned up against a wall.
Have you experienced such a thing at work? And we'll be hearing the latest from Ukraine after the long-awaited evacuation of the steel plant in Mariupol, where Jerome Starkey of the Sun newspaper in Kharkiv had this close shave last week.
Just heard the sound of a drone buzzing over us. This already gives pretty clear instructions to get out of here. On your radio, on Global Player, and
LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock. After nearly 2 months of siege, civilians sheltering in a steel plant in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol are being given safe passage to leave. Video posted online by Ukrainian forces shows elderly women and mothers with small children climbing over piles of debris and boarding a bus. President Volodymyr Zelensky says the evacuation follows many weeks of negotiations.
For the first time in all the days of the war, this vital green corridor has started working. There were 2 days of ceasefire for the first time in the area. More than 100 civilians have already been evacuated, women and children fleeing hostilities.
UN humanitarian workers and doctors have set up a reception centre in the city of Zaporizhia to provide support for the refugees on their arrival. Conservative MP Crispin Blunt has announced he will stand down at the next election after 25 years in Parliament. The former Justice Minister apologised last month after he claimed the sexual assault conviction of fellow MP Imran Ahmed Khan was a dreadful miscarriage of justice. He also resigned as chairman of an all-party parliamentary group on LGBT issues following protests from MPs about his comments. It's claimed delays in processing new passports could cause holiday cancellations costing more than £1 billion. The Centre for Economics and Business Research says around half of applications are resolved in a successful and timely way at the moment. The current wait time is 10 weeks, and an extra 2.5 million people in the UK are in need of a renewal compared to before the pandemic. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella will close next month, less than a year after it opened in the West End. The show at the Gillian Lynn Theatre has been hit with COVID-related disruption since the start of its run. Speaking in June last year, when the premiere was delayed, the composer expressed his frustrations about COVID restrictions in theatres.
I somehow feel that we've almost been made a sort of sacrificial lamb, because it's something to say, oh, no, really, it is very dangerous to be indoors, even though theatres are properly ventilated. There's no recycled air in any of our buildings, and yet you could have a pub, say you can open up its garden under the second phase, put a badly ventilated marquee up there. Well, of course you're going to see infections rise, aren't you?
The show will be opening on Broadway next March. New Zealand has begun welcoming back vaccinated tourists from Britain, the US, Canada and more than 50 other countries. It's dropped all its pandemic border restrictions for the first time in more than 2 years. 21 international flights are scheduled to land today in Auckland. The weather clouds with just a few sunny spells for most parts of the UK. Any rain in the southwest will clear away. Some scattered showers in northern England and southern Scotland. A high of 18 Celsius. From Global's newsroom, I'm Holly Harris.
When it feels like money's tight, it's good to know that at Tesco, we price match hundreds of products to Aldi every week. From strawberries to crumpets. So you can be sure you'll find the products that matter most to you. Because right now, every little helps. Prices match pro rata and checked on hundreds of comparable products from GB Aldi stores and or online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Products match varied by week and availability varies by store excluding Express and Northern Ireland. Details tesco.com/Aldi price match.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Andrew Castle.
It's 3 minutes past 7. Good morning to you. It's a bank holiday Monday. It is the 2nd of May, and I hope you're very well. Look, we've got some subjects we're going to talk about, which are really, really important over the next 3 hours. Some are going to be sort of fun, some are going to be a little bit trivial, some are going to be major, like Ukraine. And then where to put the entirety of what we're about to talk about now, I just don't know. I don't really care about one MP, good or bad, in Tiverton or Honiton. We're talking about Neil Parish. I don't really. If you watch a bit of porn and you're doing it in public, A, you're an idiot. B, you shouldn't. C, goodbye. Private employment would see you disappear. Maybe we need an HR department in the House of Commons, but that, compared with abusing 15-year-old boys, is a whole different thing, which is what that bloke Khan was doing. Okay, so we've got to maintain some proportionality. The overarching thing for me is that women cannot feel safe in a place of work. They can't get ahead because some weirdos are on power trips, and it might be kind of like, okay, fine, if it was some ordinary place of work, but this is where we make laws. These are the people we're supposed to look up to. Oh, that's appalling. It's anyway, we're going to talk about it. If you've experienced sexism or misogyny in the workplace, and that has followed through to a bullying situation, did you get it resolved? I'll take all of those stories. So 345 6060 973. Trying to build up a picture of what the reality is. But let's get the very latest. Now from Rachel Venables, LBC's correspondent. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, we know that allegations of sexism and misogyny in Parliament have continued to rock Westminster as the House of Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has now called for radical action amongst MPs, as well as a review of their various and intricate working practices. We know, as you've been mentioning, a number of current and former female MPs, they've been speaking out in recent days of their own stories of harassment, abuse and sexism in the workplace, and this has all come really to a head after a Tory MP was caught watching porn in the House of Commons by female colleagues. This is Neil Parish, a 65-year-old farmer. He was admitted watching the adult material twice. Now, he's claimed that the first time was accidental. He says he stumbled across the video after looking for Dominator tractors online, but then the second time he said he watched the video, that was a moment of madness. He's now resigning from Parliament, and yesterday the Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng was forced to deny that the Conservative Party is institutionally sexist.
But it's very easy to brand them all, the whole institution, as institutionally sexist, and I don't think that's true. There are racists in this country. There are people who hurl racist abuse, but when people say, well, Britain is racist, I don't agree with them. I think most people don't agree with them. So you can't allow a few bad apples to tarnish a whole institution, and I don't think the party is institutionally sexist.
Now, he also said the scheme to deal with...
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Reported 56 members of Parliament are facing claims of sexual misconduct, including, it's believed, at least 3 cabinet ministers who've been referred to the Independent Complaints and Grievance Scheme. Now, commentators have been coming up with various solutions that could tackle the problem, from changing the HR system to all women shortlists, getting more female MPs through the doors, to shutting the bars of Parliament. But Mr. Kwarteng thinks that would be going too far.
No, they shouldn't all be shut. I don't think we should have a kind of excessively puritanical, severe regime in that regard. I think, again, I would say people should be expected to act responsibly, and if they don't, we should have the process, the procedure to make sure that people are sanctioned.
Whilst Sir Keir Starmer's called for top-down behavioural and cultural change, the Labour leader says he's spoken to several women about the matter.
They are very clear that whilst there does need to be culture change, those who are engaged in this sort of activity, whether it's comments about Angela Rayner or whether it's watching porn in the House of Commons, have to take responsibility.
Well, the Deputy Labour leader, Angela Rayner, as he mentioned there, herself at the centre of a misogyny scandal when the Mail on Sunday claimed she crossed and uncrossed her legs during PMQs to distract Boris Johnson. She's now written to the Prime Minister over claims in the Sunday Times that a Sexist of the Year award was handed out at a lockdown-busting Christmas party in Number 10. She's demanded answers and accountability there, as we know the Met's investigation into those parties is still ongoing.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed for that full roundup. Claire Pearsall, political commentator, former special advisor to Immigration Minister Caroline Noakes at the Home Office, is with me now. Claire, good morning.
Good morning.
Do you recognise everything that we're talking about? I can't believe that we haven't known perhaps more about it or haven't focused more on it over the previous years. Have we had our fingers in our ears?
Well, no, I think it's just now reported on more widely. I think this is people coming forward, especially women. Now,
In a quarter of a mile at Junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
It's not a new problem, so we shouldn't be surprised. It's astonishing that it still goes on, but I still feel safe working there. So I just want to reassure people it's not wall-to-wall sexism and misogyny. It's in part.
Exit at Junction 3.
We do need to look at it a little bit widely, and I'm really glad that we've had some light shone on the matter.
Journalist Charlotte
In a quarter of a mile at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312.
talking about here when she was 21, 22, young journalist making her way. She felt very vulnerable. Starts working in Downing Street and people not messing with her quite so much. That's hardly a surprise.
It's not a surprise, and when you speak to senior women journalists, as I've done over the past week, they don't suffer with that kind of behaviour. They are sort of set apart from it. The male MPs especially would not go up to them and make any kind of comment because it would be reported in a newspaper. So there is a shift of the balance of power. I worry more for the younger staff members who don't have that protection. They are in their 20s, this is their first job, and they're a little bit starry-eyed. Where is the protection for them?
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
21, 22, 23-year-old fresh out of university and looking to get ahead in their careers if things like this happen. And
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
let's talk about any work environment. What is a young woman to do?
Well, and I think that's largely the problem, is that they are seen as sort of easy prey in that respect. They're keen to learn, they want to get on, they're extremely clever and ambitious, and that is used against them, which is wrong. I've been there a very long time, I am no longer in my 20s, so these things sort of don't apply to me. But you do see some sort of very young people being treated extremely badly, and I think we have to call it out. We have to do it a lot more than we do, but the complaints and grievances scheme needs to be widened out so that there are enough people to deal with it.
Yeah, and there is some suggestion that anonymity could be introduced there, but justice has to be done and seen to be done as well. Referring to Liam Byrne here, particularly the Labour MP, who has apologised profoundly for, I think it was 2 years worth of bullying and ostracisation of a member of his staff, which was declared completely wrong. He was suspended only for 2 days.
Oh, that's right. The sanctions just aren't there. They're not going to discourage people if it's only a 2-day suspension. And also, that staff member's name was given to Liam Byrne throughout the process. So the process wasn't confidential. That's not going to encourage people to come forward. We work in very small teams. It is quite obvious that, you are going to be talking about one of maybe 3 people. So that needs to be better. There aren't any protections. And I do feel incredibly sorry for that person. 2 years of bullying is horrendous.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't happen in any other workplace that would have been dealt with.
Good to speak with you. Thanks for your time this morning. Claire Pearsall, an LBC political commentator, former special advisor to Immigration Minister Caroline Noakes at the Home Office. 12 minutes past 7. Aisha Ali Khan is with me, women's rights campaigner, co-organiser for the Women's March London. Aisha, how are you?
In a quarter of a mile at Wagoners Roundabout, take the 2nd exit and stay on the Parkway, A312.
I was just frustrated that whilst we really ought to be talking about
matters, not more important than this, but just bigger. And yet we're sort of wallowing in this mire, and we have to. That's what's depressing.
And it's quite surprising because the only reason we actually take a step back and look, the only reason we're actually talking about it again is because it's an MP. If this had been Joe Bloggs watching porn in his office somewhere, it would not have...
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.
It's a very insidious part of our society now. It's become so normal, so normalised in the last 10 plus years. From what I have seen and from my own writing and my own campaigning, it's become such an everyday fabric of society, watching porn, having access to sexual gifts and little videos and so on. And society has just become immune to it, which is absolutely wrong. And now we've seen somebody like Neil Parish sitting in the House of Commons, having access to it, and first time he said it's accidental, second time he said, oh, let me take a second look. It's just sending out such a wrong message, honestly.
That's very interesting, Aisha, that you've really focused in on this particular element of wrongdoing. Many people will think, well, it's hardly hitting grannies over the head, is it? Let's be honest, it doesn't feel like that. There's porn everywhere. He was consuming it in the wrong place. He's an idiot. He's lost his job and his reputation. Now it's up to him to talk to his wife and his family about it and deal with that embarrassment and move on. But you're focusing on the pornography aspect and how the consumption of that radiates into wider society. I think that's very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a pastoral teacher as well, and the language that the young boys use, and young girls, it's, I mean, the everyday phrases like, phrases like deep water has become everyday. The attitudes towards the young girls, it's seen in a very objective, like the objective subject. Young girls themselves don't understand about boundaries. They think that the only way we can feel loved and cherished and important to just be engaged in sexual activity as well with these young people. The attitudes towards what would constitute a relationship have totally changed. And it's not just pornography. I mean, I'm going to throw the net a bit wider and say we have shows like Love Island where people meet and within days they're supposed to be a couple and having sex with each other. We've got people out there, dating apps like Tinder out there where the sole purpose is just to meet up and have sex without getting to know each other. So
I don't know about that on Tinder.
Well, the initial
I've never used that one. But I mean, I take the wider point.
Well, you don't that's true. But my point is that our whole attitude towards sex and pornography has really changed within societal viewpoint, and that's what we need to concentrate on, because what is happening is that our young people are growing up with a very skewed idea of what it's like to be in a relationship, and it's very unhealthy. And then obviously now we've got this scandal. Can I just say, I've been talking about sex scandals in the House of Commons for many years now. We've had a Me Too movement where many women came forward a few years ago to talk about...
In a quarter of a mile, turn